We are at the Crystal Gold Mine. They have a gift shop, they have a mine tour, they've got a shooting gallery. They actually, with the mine tour, you get a half-hour worth of gold panning that you can see over there at that truck. People are gold panning there.
This is the campground. I'll go out here and park.
Yep, there's the parking right there.
Hello friends, we're in Kellogg, Idaho. We're at the Crystal Gold Mine. We're gonna go on a gold mine tour today. Usually they don't allow people to videotape, but we've gotten special permission, and so we're gonna take you along with us. All right, here we are at the Crystal Gold Mine gift shop. This is where you come in to get your tickets and go on your tour. And they've just got a whole bunch of rocks, all kinds of crystals and rocks, and they're really priced very fair. They're great prices on rocks and all kinds of stuff. This is where the mine is. It's down through this door, and they've got t-shirts and they've got kid stuff. They've got fossils and just all kinds of little knickknacks and you name it. If it's related to rocks, they've probably got it. Also, custom jewelry. They have here a bunch of custom jewelry.
Hi, and welcome to the Crystal Gold Mine and RV Park. My name is Destiny, and we're going to be going down on a tour today. All right, we're going to have a low spot as we enter in here. Now, this mine shaft, we believe, was actually dug in the late 1800s. We don't know exactly who the original miners were or when they dug it out because they never filed a claim. We know at one point in time they dynamited closed that entryway, leaving all of their tools and work in progress left inside. We believe they had every intention of coming back, but simply never did. Now, the property changed hands a couple times after that point, but most importantly was in the 1990s. A retired miner from Montana and his wife, Bill and Judy Lane, purchased that property after finding the time capsule left inside. And they worked together to preserve it and share it with the world. Now, Bill cleaned up the few cave-ins that had happened in here, gave us our lovely walkway and support system, but he also dug this tunnel leading upwards. Now, this leads to the upper mine shaft. If you go the opposite way, you can see those ladders hanging up there. Now, that upper mine shaft was actually the second mine dug in this mountain, and it was known as the Monitor Mine, done in 1914. Wow. Now, that upper mine shaft, when going on, they had no idea this lower tunnel was even here. But Bill connected the two to create better ventilation for us down here in the regular mine shaft. But down here in the lower mine shaft, what drew our miners in originally is the fact that there was quartz crystal visible from the outside. Now, that's important because you can have quartz without gold in it, but you cannot have gold without quartz. So they were always chasing that vein in here. And once they got to this point, they went down. This is called a winze, and this winze goes down an estimated 40 feet. At one point in time, there were even some fish that lived in here. But either they found a hole to escape or somebody just got hungry late one winter. The timbers you see in there were left by our original miners. Now, those are now naturally preserved by the water. If we were to drain this and expose it to air, that wood's going to deteriorate almost instantly. And again, I know I don't want to be here if they ever try to do that one.
Right.
So what got Bill and Judy to name this the Crystal Gold Mine is the fact that there is this beautiful mineral hanging on the wall here. Named for the founder of the Smithsonian Institute, this is called smithsonite. Its natural form is going to be more of that white or pale gray, but depending on the type of ore it was exposed to, it'll turn colors. So that turquoise up there is because it was exposed to copper. We'll get to see a variety of colors as well as a few different shapes depending on how it's grown on the walls. And of course, you're going to see lots of algae growing on here as well. Now, as they traveled through here, it was pretty early on that they lost track of that quartz vein and had to search for the next 100 feet to find it again. But we know they did well in the mountain, and one of the things that tells us that is the fact that they used iron rails, and you can still see them peeking out of the concrete below us. Iron would have been a very expensive luxury in the late 1800s. Most miners would have used wood because it was cheap and easily accessible. Now, before we go through this cost cut, I always like to point out the crystals here hanging from the ceiling, as well as over here on the wall. Now, these we call in our mountain soda straws. It's still just that smithsonite coming down, but as the water drops down, the minerals solidify around it, creating a hollow tube of crystals. So over here, you can see one of the longest ones, trying to form that stalactite, and eventually where they drip on the ground, they'll form stalagmites.
And how long does it take for something like that to?
It depends on the amount of moisture coming through the wall. These ones we figure have been growing since about the early 1880s.
Wow.
So quite a slow process in some areas. But there's areas further in the mine where more moisture has come through, and those stalactites are definitely a lot longer. So as we go through this crosscut here, we can see where there was some quartz vein, and that's what actually drove our miners around this corner here, trying to get back on that gold. Unfortunately, on the opposite side, they ran into scaly type rock. Now this is sedimentary, much more capable of crumbling, so our miners had to travel with caution through here. It's also the one part that I cannot successfully walk backwards.
Right.
My personal favorite type of smithsonite here, as the waters roll down the angle of the ceiling, it ends up forming a sheet of crystals, and it looks like the fatty edge of a piece of bacon, so we call it cave bacon. Yeah.
Yeah, I was taught to, how you tell the difference between a stalagmite and a stalactite is a stalactite holds tight to the ceiling, a stalagmite might reach the ceiling.
There we go, yep. I'm pretty close to that, tight to the ceiling and mighty from the floor. That's
Yep.
my go-to. Yeah, but it's just like the north, south, east, and west. I always say never eat shredded wheat, and my kids always say never eat soggy waffles, is what we call in school. But different teachers have different things. I'm like, hey, as long as you remember the gist of it, that's the important part.
Right.
Exactly.
Now, back in here, we can see where the miners decided that it was going to be unsafe to keep traveling. Because of that scaly type rock and the minimal amount of quartz that they had seen, it wasn't worth them to keep traveling. So they started backfilling this area, putting their waste rocks and tailings in there. That saved them time from having to transport it outside of the mountain at every trip. And of course, our miners had to always be careful with the type of rock they were going through because they didn't have hard hats like we do. They used a hat similar to this one on the wall, made up of either fleece or leather. Maybe good to keep the hair and sweat out of your eyes, but not much more than that.
Wow.
How
You
did
get-
they not catch it on fire with that candle, right?
Probably the sweat soaked. That's it.
Probably.
Yeah, because they only worked with candles in here. Even the carbide lanterns were not developed until the early 1900s. So they would have utilized a tool from the local blacksmith called a sticking Tommy. And they called it that because it sticks in the walls. Tommy's just an old nickname for a candlestick.
Oh.
Now, they could hang it from the front of their hat. They could find a crack in the wall to put it in, or they could always hammer it in there like a nail. They got pre-done ones, make it convenient. Now, they'd only have so many candles with them at any period in time, and it would be more than a day's journey to get additional candles. So sometimes they would even choose to work in the dark.
Wow.
Now, if you want, I'll show you what it looks like at just candlelight in here.
All right.
Put that back for the next one. All right. Now, they wouldn't have had a handy dandy lighter. They would have just had the matches. But this is how they would have worked. With
Wow.
a single candle flame. Swinging a pickaxe, doing a hammer and chisel, even preparing for a dynamite blast. But they would know when they were on that quartz vein because it would be a more reflective material for them. So I'll show you right over here. There it is. So that quartz is going to be definitely shinier versus I'll go to the side here and show you that flat black rock.
So they were working very close to that candle.
They were working very close to that
Within
candle.
6 inches probably of that candle or so.
Yep, and even sometimes they would work with nothing at all.
Wow.
So, but just traveling too fast, if a water droplet comes down or if they sneeze in the wrong direction, lights are out and it gets very dark in here. Pitch black to the point where you can't even see the hand in front of your face.
Oh, I'll bet.
Yeah. So you'd be left with nothing but your touch senses to get through.
Wow.
That's how we don't get the wax in our pockets.
Right.
All right, as we go through this area, it's a low spot, so you'll want to
Okay.
wash your heads. Now, the further into the mountain we go, the more moisture has come through the walls, so the smithsonite deposits get larger. You see more of that algae growing
Oh, look at
here.
this.
And just up a little bit further, we start to see some of the black veined smithsonite. Now, the black color comes from being exposed to silver. And we know this area of Idaho is so rich in silver, that's why they called it the Silver Valley. To this day, we're still one of the top producers of silver in the entire world.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the Lucky Friday mine, which is a local here in the Silver Valley, alone last year produced 50% of the world's silver
Wow.
intake.
That's impressive.
I thought so too. I had a few of the miners come through on a tour and they told me the actual pounds that they had taken out of there. Can't remember that, but 50 is a good number to remember.
Yeah.
Now, when our miners were down here working, they would use dynamite, but very sparingly. Most of what they did with their shift was called scaling. They would use a pickaxe or a hammer and hand still. And the way they determined which tool would work in which areas, they would listen to the rocks. More hollow sounding
Yep.
rock, they probably could get through with a pickaxe. Otherwise, it's gonna take time and brute force to chisel in the wall. Now this is where the miner, if working by themselves, is gonna blow out their candle and work in the dark. And they'll put their thumb on the very end of the spike and move it only at that last minute. Like they're working with their eyes closed.
Wow.
But they'll do a quarter of a turn with each strike to make sure that their holes stay nice and rounded. Now if you miss too many times, that's where you're gonna end up with that nickname, Stealthy the Miner.
Yeah.
Once they got deep enough, they would switch to the long pole, put it in there, and forcefully try to break the rocks off there. Unless they were preparing for a dynamite blast, then they would drill a series of holes in a specific shape or pattern, and they could help control the direction of the blast, depending upon those series of holes that they dug. Now, the other thing I'd love to point out in this area is that you probably noticed there's no timber in the mine shaft itself.
Right.
This is what's known as a bald mine. So because of the hard structure of the metamorphic rock, they were able to use the way they carved the tunnel to hold its shape. So as we look down the tunnel here, we can see a vertical wall on one side and an armed swoop curve on the other. So it acts like an archway to support itself up.
Wow.
Now, as we continue on, our miners are still trying to relocate that large vein of quartz, but they can see the seam between the upper and lower shaft. But the persistence did pay off, because just up here around the corner is where they found it again. So this was a very happy day for our miners. And remember, that quartz vein travels at a 45-degree angle. So if you turn around and look up, you can see here on the upper wall as well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So when our miners were going through here, this entire ceiling of this archway was all quartz crystal, and everything down below was waste rock. So what our miners would do is they'd first come in and under-dig that waste rock out of the way, and then come back and pop it from up top. It would be hanging from that upper wall, so that's why this is often referred to as the hanging wall. Once separated, they would take it outside, crush it by hand, and work to get that gold out of it. It'd definitely be a long process. But we estimate they were pulling really good numbers out of here, and that's probably the reason why they chose not to file a claim. Nobody can steal your claim if they don't know it exists in the first place.
Be real quiet about it.
Yes, yes, very much so. That's why we also assumed that it was a small group of friends that were in here working. But it's all guesstimation at this point, because nothing was ever written down. Now here towards the lower part of the wall, you've got some iron ore, and it's rusty due to the moisture in the mountain. I like pointing that out to the kids. Anything I can refer back to Minecraft makes them remember the tour a little bit better. Over here, another cool item is our purple vein smithsonite. A lot of kids say it looks like the color of amethyst, but it's caused by being exposed to cobalt. Cobalt's known for being blue, but it turns our smithsonite either a purple or a pale pink. Now, something important to keep in mind about this mineral is that our miners did not get to enjoy any of it when they were here. The walls might have been wet to them, but this has only grown in the 100+ years since they've been absent from the mine shaft.
Okay, yeah.
Now here we see a lot of that is grown. Now also in our mountain, we know that we have the silver, mostly in that form of galena, and that's a composite material made up of silver, zinc, and lead. Now, silver miners often look for that quartz vein as well because galena is also a companion material to that. But we know that our original miners did not go for the silver. Because of the weight of the ore and the volume that they would have had to harvest, it just wasn't feasible for them to transfer it that far.
And gold was worth more as well.
Always,
so.
Yeah, gold is definitely worth more. Now, this is my personal favorite section here in the mountain. That silver stained smithsonite. I love the contrast of colors, and of course, that beautiful cave bacon again. I always tease my husband. I'm like, I don't want any of the gold in here. I just want this wall. Please and thank you.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I've tried to get pictures of it a few times, but I can't seem to capture the beauty of it. So I just enjoy it each time I'm down here. Now over here in the wall, we actually get a glimpse of that gold underneath this magnifying glass here. The color of butter in there.
I will try to show this on film here, but we'll see the little tiny specks of gold right in there. Move the flashlight. There you go. A little bit. That perfect. Now you can see that speck of gold, and I'll point it out on the video.
Now, gold is such a soft material that it actually morphs its way into the cracks and pockets of that quartz vein. Often miners, the prospectors that come through here tell me it's extremely rare to see it with your naked eye. So they always ask me with wide eye, says, nobody wanted to mine this out? And I tell them, tons of people have, but not the ones that count. The owners have always felt that the history is more valuable than the mineral itself.
Right.
Which is a nice little treasure that we get to keep here. Now, we come across some blue vein smithsonite here on the wall. Kids tell me it looks like toothpaste, but this is just another color variation of that copper exposure in here. So we can get the turquoise or the blue from that copper. But it's great to see the variations in that blue that you can find in here.
Here's a big bunch of it right here.
Now in our mountain, we have two forms of silver. We have the galena. We also have wire silver, which is almost a pure form of natural silver. And I have a sample here underneath this plexiglass. It literally looks like small black wires. Pretty rare to see, a little challenging with the plexiglass, but you can still kind of see it in there. Something that's great in person. Now, behind me is one of the only timbers that we'll see in the mine shaft itself, and this log's already starting to petrify. They say in nature, petrification takes between 5,000 and 10,000 years to complete, but this log has progressed this far in less than 200 years.
Yeah.
Also in this tunnel, we see the longest soda straws, or stalactites here in the mine shaft, going along the edge up there. And there's so much moisture coming down, it kind of looks like it's raining.
It does, yeah.
Receive a complimentary crystal shower today. As we go through this area, we are going to be walking on wood planks, so we'll just want to walk single file.
Okay.
And I do have handrails if they get slippery for you. Also on the handrail, I have a bit of that smithsonite that has started to form, so you're welcome to touch it there if you would like to see what the wall feels like.
It's really smooth.
I thought it'd be mushy based off of how it
It looks,
here.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah, it's hard and.
Oh,
No,
on
no,
the
Twyla.
reel.
Twyla.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I was taking a picture.
Now up here, we're gonna see lots of this moss and algae growing. Now, the reason that this is growing is because we used incandescent light bulbs in here initially, and that encouraged kind of that greenhouse effect from the heat it produced. After we changed it to LEDs, they started to go brown. So we recently put in a couple of grow lights, trying to help them flourish again. But we're left with what looks kind of like hairs or a tiny forest growing on the wall in here.
And those are really only growing because of the lights in here, right?
Because of the lights, yeah.
Yeah, notice that they're growing in the spots right where the lights are.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I usually point that out to the kids when they ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one still hasn't given us much green back yet. But this one over here, I've always thought it looked the most like a forest. And
Oh,
I got
wow.
the most regrowth happening
Look at that.
here. Yeah, so our Bigfoot is definitely happy in there.
Wow.
So more samples of that iron right next to it.
Looks like a face.
It does kind of. That's what happens when a miner gets too greedy. They become part of the mountain. Now, down in here, you've got what it would have been used as a multi-purpose room. The miners would have kept their extra tools in here, sat down and had their breaks and meal times. Because of the limited number of candles they had, they didn't want to travel outside of the mountain at every break. So they'd sit in there probably in the dark and eat their lunch.
So it's just a dead end.
No, just a dead end. Now, they may not have dug it specifically for that multi-purpose room, but they would have utilized the space that they had as working through here. Because we figure a tunnel like this, working with hand tools, it easily could have taken them many years to dig this out. Yeah, I just imagine them sitting there in the dark trying to eat their lunches. I'm like, not me. I enjoy my flashlight. I want to keep this electricity going. The lights go off and I don't stay down here very long. Now here in the wall we have our second item to touch. We have gold nuggets. Now there's no way of telling just how large that nugget is there in the wall, but it's pretty cool to see. And I've got a second one up here as well. There's that second nugget right there. And if you would like to touch it, you're welcome to. Kind of rub it for luck.
Right here?
Yeah. Now, we know that there's still gold in this mountain. From what we can see, and also when Bill and Judy were going through the mountain, getting it cleaned up, they found enough gold to put 4 grandchildren through college and pay off 2 houses.
Wow, good for them.
Yeah, not a bad retirement project. So, but they did just what they needed to get it ready for the tour and maintain that safety. He tried to preserve as much history as possible when working in the mine shaft. Now, this is the back of the mine. They were still on that quartz vein, as you can see up here. It was a pretty large section.
Sure was, look at that.
So they followed that down into the water here. Now, this is our second winze. And this one goes down an estimated 60 feet. Now the theory is that the 2 tunnels might even connect at the bottom, or they had plans to connect them. Once connected, they would have done more of these manways going through that quartz vein in the mountain and trying to harvest more of that material out of there. Now, the miners would have had someone stay up top here to pull the buckets of rocks and ore, but to also pump the water because that hole does always fill back up. So we've got the original hand pump that was left in here, and also the remnants of that hoist bucket. Now this was found in the water over here. This is kind of how we know not to take the wood out of the water.
Oh yeah, it starts turning black.
Yeah, and fell apart. It was solid when they found it, but it pretty much turned to mush.
As soon as you got to oxygen.
Yeah, not very supportive now, for sure. So at this point, we have walked back 550 feet to the hill, and there's still 900 feet of material above us. And it'll stay about 48 to 50 degrees in here year round, which means if the miners had enough supplies, they could have worked through the winter. When it's 10 degrees outside, 50 will feel nice and toasty.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, pretty shooting some back here. As it got cold in the winter, I was worried because during January it got to be negative 32 degrees outside. And I kept telling the big boss, I was like, if the power goes out, we're just gonna go sleep in the mine shaft. Yeah, almost an 80-degree difference. So I'm like, yeah, we'll do that rather than freezing outside.
Yeah. There's the thermometer right now. 50 degrees.
Yeah, the highest
Fahrenheit.
I've ever seen it get in here is at 52, but that was after a day full of tours and large ones at that, after they were baking out in the sunshine.
Right.
So I was like, it's probably just that body heat accumulating inside. Now, would you like to travel ahead so you can get some good images of that?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Perfect. I'll grab that for Curtis and use the hard hat. Now, as we travel out, you'll notice we're going slightly downhill. And the miners did that specifically for the rails of the mining cart. Because even an empty mining cart weighs about 1,000 pounds. So once it was full of all those rocks and tools, they'd want that downhill assist to get it out at the end of each day. Some of the bigger mines around the country would utilize horses and mules to pull the carts. The downhill.
Turquoise veins.
Yeah, I've also had some people tell me it almost looks like Larimer. Now you'll see some of the pipes along the edge of the walkway, and that was used to drain out the excess water. Because the water filling up in here and it flooding is what led to it being rediscovered.
Yeah, there's some of those pipes.
Yeah. Now, when the highway was being put in during the 1960s, at that point this tunnel was flooded and water was seeping out of the front of the mountain. And everybody assumed that it was a natural spring. But the highway crew was worried that it would interfere with the roadway. So they started digging at the front of the mountain in hopes of diverting the water. But once they realized it was a mine shaft, they assumed it was a monitor mine because that was the only thing registered in this area. So they boarded it back up and left it alone. And there was a cave-in pretty close to that entry point, so nobody really ventured farther in here until Bill came through in the 90s. But he had had a dream of finding an abandoned mine shaft that was hand-tooled from the 1800s, and he looked for about 4 years to find this one. Ray Kropp actually created a book and talks a lot about the history that he got there from Bill. There's going to be low points here, 3 of them in a row. There to the right, you can see another sample of that scaly type rock. Even the miners put a timber up top there to help support the ceiling and walls. So we just use this to store the TNT in, because only the bravest shall enter. Yeah, a little bit of a sloppy area there with the wettest room in the entire mountain. All right, we're back to that first crosscut here. Now, when we get back to the front of the mine shaft, you'll be able to take a look at that mine cart again. When Bill and Judy came in here, that was on the rails full of all those rocks and tools, as if it had just been staged for a long weekend. So you can take a look at kind of what it would appear when they were taking out a load. So we'll keep going straight behind Jeff.
Great.
And we have no idea why they abandoned one.
No, there's tons of theories out there, from the simple to the gruesome, but nothing ever set in stone. Yeah, it's kind of hard to know, but we've never seen any floating eyeballs in here. We'll hear some knocking every so often, which we assume are our friends in here, but I haven't gotten my ghost hunter in here yet. Yeah, so this mine cart, yeah, definitely would have been a hefty load to push around. This cart could hold about 3/4 of a ton of material. So figure literally over a ton when you consider the rocks and the cart itself. Trying to get that through the mountain would have been a challenge. But when you're on this quartz vein and you're pulling out the hefty amounts of gold, like those gold nuggets we've seen in the back, definitely would make it worthwhile.
Wow.
Yeah, we had it, this was one of my daughter's favorite spots to hide behind when we did our haunted mine tours in October.
Oh, yeah.
We changed it all out to black lights, and it was It was a pretty fun event. We had over 300 guests come through.
Oh, wow.
So it was definitely a fun little venture. All right, and when we get back up here, we'll just put our hard hats on the floor and our flashlights on the edge, and I'll get those all sanitized.
All right. Thank you so much for this tour and letting us come in and film it and show our audience and our viewers.
You're so welcome.
You know, it's not all the time that people allow cameras in, and so
And typically we don't
appreciate
allow
that.
videos, but we made the exception for you guys to help share it with everybody. And
Thank you.
anybody who wants to come in, we are open year round. Our gold panning is seasonal, but we are open 7 days a week except for major holidays.
Great,
Yep.
great,
Thank you
good
so
time.
much.
Thank
You're
you.
so welcome. Thank you.
Yep. Look at that. Yeah.
I look over a little right that amethyst.
These are the gemstones that we found today while we were panning. On the left is what I found, and on the right in the purple is what Twyla found. And then the little glass jars in front of them are just the little things that we found. We didn't want to lose them, so we bought the little jars and put them in there. Hey guys, that concludes our time here at the Crystal Gold Mine. We did some panning, we went on the tour, we had a great time. Bring your family down here. This is fun for the whole family. And if you like videos like this and you enjoyed the content today, please like and subscribe. That really helps us out.